All right. 2 minutes late. Sorry about that. Let's see, what are we doing today? We are in fact adding static file serving and probably getting into serving a little bit of HDMX as well to see sort of if we can get some cheap interactivity on some of these pages. We'll start obviously with the static file serving. This is basically going to mean adding some kind of handler here, right? That handles basically static content, right? So we're probably going to add some kind of function here that checks for a specific prefix and so on. So we have this proc r request to bool, and probably we want a complete actual function here. So I'm just going to do this handle static file like this. And so handle static file will be a function that we write, of course, a little bit later. Let's see here. Actually, I don't need these. I don't know what I'm doing here. Let me just, there you go. So we want to check some kind of prefix here, and I'm just basically going to say that we are looking for a prefix. Right, so we could do return strings starts with sure, possibly. We probably want prefix, let's see, has prefix, this one. The path needs to start with, static, for example, right? Like this. And that would be, when can this request be processed, right? Now I realize we can do this in one line, so let's just do it in one line. And now we don't have this function yet, right? This handler, handle static file, right? So we're gonna add that one. It's going to be a procedure, obviously, that takes a socket, which is a net TCP socket like this, and a request, which is of course an HTTP request. And an allocator, so mem allocator like this, and returns nothing. And so here what we could do is we can take the request path, right, and remove static from it first of all, right, because we know that a request that comes into this handler should have static, right, around it. So presumably we would now want to say, remove static and then access the file, probably, right? So the actual path to this is going to be the path, except we remove /static. So let's say path is equal to strings. Let's see here if we can find cut. We could basically, replace. Yeah, we could do this, certainly. So replace with request.path and replace /static, right, with nothing, in fact. And here, of course, this takes an allocator. So this gives us an output string and whether we allocate it or not, right? So let's say allocated, did allocate. Let's say this. We don't actually need to do much of anything here. Yeah. Replace n instances, right? So there is a number here, in fact. We want one instance here. Hang on, I have to open for a cat. Hello. There you go. Right, so we want to remove the static part here, obviously. And then we probably want to just look up the file. We're gonna add a few things like, oh, you can't access files that are obviously like not in the actual directory, for example. So one of the classic old kind of attack vectors, or whatever you might call it, back in the day was if you have this static file server, you could effectively pass in URLs like this, right? So you would pass in ... like this, for example, and access files that were not in the actual directory, for example, right? And that is of course not necessarily what we want, generally speaking. So that was one of the failure modes that existed back in the day. Let's see here. So we have the new path, and here we really want to read the file, right? So we're going to read the entire file at once. This is not generally speaking what you want, right? But we're just going to do that because it's easier for now, certainly. So here we're going to say file data, and read OK is OS read. Read the entire file we can do. And take a path and an allocator like this. I'm going to say this one. Yeah, this should be fine. And if we couldn't read the file, we're gonna go ahead and assume that this actually means that the file was not found right now. That's obviously not correct, right? Log rf, let's say warnf actually, like this. And here we actually want to effectively, handle 404, right? We effectively want to call this 404 in order to say like, this didn't make any sense, sorry, right? And we should be fine to do this, right? Because it takes the exact same things as our handle static file handler, right? And here, what we can do here is create this bytes buffer, sure. 200, okay, doesn't sound bad. Text HTML is not quite correct, right? And now you might wonder, okay, should we maybe use a different MIME type or calculate MIME types here? Let's make something that sort of does that, right? Let's say file MIME type like this, right? And we're going to do this based on extension entirely now. We're always going to return a string of some sort. The interface here is not necessarily super, important. I think that this is actually going to have to take, oh no, actually, no. I was thinking that this will have to take an allocator, but I don't think we need to, because this should be doable with just a including the dot. The first dot is used to split off the file extension, unlike X, which uses the last dot. Sure. We want the long extension, to be honest. Let's take the file name here. And we don't need an allocator. And you can see here that Copilot actually thought that we did, right? But the reason we don't is because we obviously have the original string. So we're really just saying, slice off a bit of this and give me the result, right? Because what you can view this as, like we have this string here, right? If I want to take a substring of that, what I really need is just a pointer into that string. Of course, if I change that pointer, now we're changing the actual original string, right? So we just have to be aware of what we're doing, right? Let's say extension is equal to this, right? And then we want to say switch extension. And here we're gonna just have a list of the ones we actually support, right? So we could have a case.html like this, right? HTML, sure. Not that it is going to necessarily, I don't know what SHTML, actually I don't know what that is. Huh, interesting actually. But yeah, okay, let's say this, right? So this would mean that we are using that extension. JS, sure. Svig. ICO. It's funny the things that it actually comes up with, right? Copilot. Because it's a little bit like, I don't know why you're bringing these up, to be honest, because it's like, these are not the ones I would expect you to come up with, you know? I don't know if that makes sense, but that's kind of how I feel when I see a lot of this. Because suddenly it's like, oh yeah, I'm on a font kick over here, right? I'm just really into fonts right now, and so on. And I find that to be a little bit interesting. Is everything fine, by the way, with the, I see that there are potentially 2 people. Is everything fine with the size of the text and so on? What are we thinking? Let's see here. Did allocate declare but not used. We're gonna basically just ignore that. And file data declare but not used. We're obviously gonna use the file data, so that's fine. And here we actually want to say content type of the actual thing, right? The actual actually it strikes me now I actually missed an obvious one that I kind of want to add here. Yeah, case txt. How the fuck did it know? How did you know that? What is even happening? Actually, we can actually have as a fallback case plain text plain. No, that's not really what we want though, right? We actually want probably application, what is it, octet stream? And type octet stream. Let's see. I don't remember what that one is. Sure. Yeah, it is application octet stream. So I think if we don't have anything, we actually want application octet stream. Yes, thank you. And case txt text plain. Probably. Yeah. Let's just do that. And here we want to actually calculate this based on this, right? So if path. Yeah, sorta, but not really, to be honest. Yeah, let's not do that for now. And here we can say mime type, find mime type of path, right? The mime type here is going to be like this. And content type is going to use this, right? So we're basically adding content type, and then, you know, the actual value we have there, and content length, sure. This is an interesting, yeah, buffer write. Actually, we want to write string. Yeah, okay. That's kind of interesting. Yeah, of course, there's no general. Yeah, let's just say this, but I think we're gonna do fmt tprintf here, the len file data. Indeed. This tprintf here is going to be using the temporary allocator, and of course we do actually, in the long run, we actually have to deal with that. So these are all the headers it wants to add here. That's interesting, right? Let's say content is equal to bytes, buffer to bytes, yeah, like this. Byte sent, sure. Here we're gonna be sending all of that stuff. And I don't think that there's any additional stuff we want to send, yeah? Let's see, to be honest, let's run some stuff. Right, this is now running. I did /static, correct? Yeah, and this is now running from the current working directory. So if we look at what is in that directory, right? Let's say tokenization tokenizer. Utilities, let's just say utilities, right? This path, if I said static tokenization utilities Odin, like this, right? If I said this, fuck it, static tokenization utilities dot Odin. Oh, I don't have, hang on, I don't have Odin as a MIME type. How could I miss that? That's rude. This is not working. Let's see here if we can figure out why. We get a request, it's a get for /static tokenization utilities dot Odin, and then we have a bunch of stuff. Accept text HTML, application XML. It doesn't actually accept. Why wouldn't it accept text plain? Doesn't that seem basic? Like, why wouldn't you accept that one, right? Text X Odin. Ooh, that's interesting. Let's see here if we can figure out why this is not actually doing anything. Opa. Maybe we should add some logging in there, probably. This is the go-to of, well, everything really. Let's add some in the beginning, because you want obviously something that just says, hey, I'm serving static file. Trying to serve static file request.path. Sounds good. Log debugf path like this, and MIME type. And here I also want to say that maybe the content, yeah, maybe we'll see. Actually, we are sending this stuff after that. Let's log this and see what's up. Bytesbuffer like this. Yeah, we'll see. /static tokenization utilities.odin. Let's copy that actually. Trying to serve static file, static tokenization utilities Odin, path tokenization utilities dot Odin, MIME type text plain, sure. Now, did this read correctly? Let's see. Handle 404 is not being hit, presumably, because we would have gotten just the 404 probably, right? So let's actually say log debugf file data. Let's say len of file data actually. And here we can also say read OK is equal to v here. Let's log that. Wow. 4200 static tokenization utilities.odin. I have to save this somewhere else, to be honest. Yeah, it's doing nothing there. Read OK is true. Len of file data 664. That's all very fine. Now, what might be the issue, right? If we go back here, we'll just put that there. What seems to be the issue, right? We have buffer to bytes here. We had 644. Let's actually check just a basic sanity check, right? If I say, if I say here, word count or whatever, 664, that is what the actual, the content in the file. So we know that we're reading the file. Otherwise, it would be a massive coincidence. We had the correct length and so on, right? So clearly, that is happening. Now we might want to say, what does the response look like? This is the nuclear option. It's just log the entire thing, right? Content is this, in fact, right? Let's just say new line, 3 single quotes, and be happy, right? Let's say that. Oh, I know what's wrong. Holy shit. We're obviously not actually writing the actual content. I mean, that would probably help, yeah. Undeclared name B. This is not at all. Hang on, no. File data is of course what I want. Content here should just be down here. Absolutely. It's not declared by. Hang on, what am I doing here? I fucked something up clearly. Right. String, but then string on file data. Let's try this. I suspect we don't need to log the entire file right now, but we're gonna do it just because, and here we're doing this again. There you go. So now we're serving this static file from the actual disk. And here we can say tokenizer and get the different file, obviously. Yeah, that's all fine. Again, we don't need to log these now. I think that's all fine now. And yeah, now we're serving static files. So there's an interesting thing that's, bouncing around in my head right now. I do want to be able to kind of parameterize these handlers somehow. And by that I mean, I want to be able to pass private data to them specifically, right? So in the situation where you, for example, you have 2 static handlers, right? No, actually that's not, we don't need private data for that, actually. So what I was gonna say is, right, you want some private data to be passed to a handler so that it can be parameterized on a specific directory, for example, right? But the truth is the handler can deal with this itself. Right, so here what we're doing is we're reading entire file name, but I may as well actually stick a prefix on this, right? If I wanted to, I could read them specifically from a directory. So what you could imagine then, just to kind of flesh this out, right, is you would have, for example, 2 static handlers, right? And you might have, for example, my cool website instead of my uncool website, right? And then you would have handle cool static file, right? For example. And in handle cool static file, we would actually pull, you know, things from the correct directory if you want to, right? So actually, we don't need private data for that at all. It's the handler that actually does the logic of where to look, for example, right? So that's not really an issue. I do still, at some point, probably want to pass private data to some of these, potentially. But for now, I think we're fine with just the request. Right, so let's maybe play around with this a little bit, right? Actually, let's save that. Actually, remove that for now, and let's maybe make a directory here with sure web. Not super concerned about that, to be honest. Index.html sounds fine. And we can add code for basically if your static URL in the static handler, if it ends with slash, we will just, we will serve index.html. Maybe. Doesn't matter so much, to be honest. It's such a small detail that, you know, it doesn't really matter now at all, right? Let's save that and see if we can toss something in here. I don't really remember what content you're supposed to have in these files, to be honest. Because if you're doing HTML5, insert some HTML5 stuff here. No, what are you doing, dude? I don't want at all this, but okay. Just do HTML, sure. I'm pretty sure this is not what we want, but whatever, doesn't matter so much. Link. Style sheet, sure. Let's link that to static, like this, static style CSS. Static web. Let's try that. Yeah, static web. Let's just do that for now. What more do we want? Actually, we kind of want HDMX for this one, is what I'm gonna say. Because I want to just start messing around with this at the moment. I'm jonesing. Where the fuck is this? There you go. And this can be basically anywhere. I want to do it in the head, actually. Yeah, I'm gonna do it in head. Let's do this, and here let's see if we can I wanna just, I don't care at all about this stuff. So hx get, right, should now basically, if we look at the reference, issues a get request to some place, and swap the returned HTML into the inner HTML of that div, right? And we can also set with hx target, we can set it to something else, right? So let's try this, right? Minus, like this, div ID minus. It doesn't matter. Do we need a minus here at all? Probably not. Div hx get static web. We don't need, actually we don't need any of those. We need, here we need decrement, like this. I'm gonna put that in an HDMX kind of namespace. An increment will be plus, right? And then here we're gonna do count like this, and here we can do hx target. I think we can do count like this. Let's see. Different element swapping, blah blah blah. A CSS query selector. Yeah, so we can do, right. We can do hx target like this. Like this, and here, sure, it starts at 0. I guess I'm fine with that. This one doesn't make a difference at all, really. Right. Let's just do this. Also, is it the outer HTML or inner HTML? Let's see. hx get the inner HTML of that div. Okay, that should be fine then. Yeah, okay, let's see if this bears any fruit, to be honest. We'll get there eventually. How is everyone? All 7-ish of you. How are we doing? Let's see, static web index HTML. Right, this is example HDMX stuff. We have a get here that did not go through because I haven't enabled unpackage. Now we have this. It's trying to get style CSS. It's trying to get fav icon. We don't have that, so that's fine. And so on. Yeah, okay. Now if I click this, we should be seeing here that it's trying to contact stuff. Yeah, now you can see increment was called, right? And that of course ends up in a panic F here, actually. That's weird, to be honest. Unexpected character. Ooh, that's a spicy one, actually. Let's see here. Actually, it's not that spicy. We're gonna be fine with this here. Tokenization. Tokenizer. It's really not that big a deal, to be honest. Okay, so we saw HDMX increment, right? Okay, this is basically what we expect. We expect also a decrement here now, so that's fine. Let's see here if we can actually implement some of this stuff. And once we have done that, we will basically have very, very cheap interactivity on this page. So here I'm going to say server register handler with the server, of course, again, proc. Not that one. If the path is HDMX increment. Did I put them in the wrong order? I put them in the wrong order, yeah? Yeah, increment. Let's fucking click them again. This is this is increment and this is decrement. Okay, so correct order, fair enough. Let's see here. This is fine. Copilot is adding a bunch of stuff. Handle HDMX increment, and then I want decrement as well. Counter I do not want at all. Decrement. At least I don't think I need counter. We should be fine with handle HDMX increment and decrement for now. When I save, of course, these do not exist. We're going to add them down here with the rest of our code. And this is a procedure. Fill everything in for me, please. And here we have the socket and the request in the allocator. We have some bytes. We're going to send a response. And this is now thinking that we're doing kind of some resty stuff and it's just modifying some value somewhere. That's not actually correct, right? We're going to say that HDMX counter is equal to 0 here. And then we are actually going to return this value. Remember, HDMX basically takes the response that it's getting and fills that in somewhere on your page, right? So effectively what we want to be sending is this part here, right? Basically. Actually, no, maybe this part only, because if it's replacing inner HTML, it should be fine. So we're gonna do that. We're gonna send essentially just a number, right? And so HDMX counter, and then we want counter string, which is this, and then counter string length, which is the length of that, right? So we sort of have all of that done. Text HTML, we're gonna see if we can, you know, send that basically. Yeah, let's do that. I think that's fine. And then we want RN, and then we want RN, and then the content itself, right? So the increment message is going to be this, and that's fine. Let's try running only with this one, and once we have this one working, we'll deal with decrement, right? For now, I'm actually going to define that, but it's going to do nothing, right? So we're going to steal the procedure signature here, like this, and it will do nothing, right? It just straight up doesn't even send anything on the socket at all. Once we know that the other one worked, we can actually start looking at that one. So I made the increment now, right? Yeah. Let's load this. And there you go. We can increment stuff on our page. You can see here, every time this is now clicked, we're going essentially to our web server, right? What HDMX is actually doing, if we look at the HTML here, is that it sees here that there's an hx get here with some kind of route. When this is clicked, HDMX has added a handler to this element, right? That says when this is clicked, we are going to execute this callback, right? Contact this route / HDMX increment, expect HTML back, and then fill in some element on our page, right? And in our case, we have said it's the inner HTML of this element, which is really just this count here, right? So when I'm clicking here, we basically just get this, right? Importantly, this is talking to our web server a lot whenever you actually interact, right? This is entirely server driven, right? There's no actual React like application running here. It is a very small, you know, JavaScript basically library that hooks into elements on the page. That's all it's doing. And then it's just contacting the web server, filling in content on the page. Right? So there's no actual client-side routing or anything that you get out of this, basically. Anyway, now that we have this working, we can actually just say, hey, decrement is really just the same, right? The same but different in the end, right? So we have HDMX counter -1, We're gonna do the same here. We're gonna send some stuff back, and that's it, really, right? Now we're gonna try both of these. I actually want to make them probably buttons as well, right? It kind of just makes sense. Let's do this actually. Can we do it just like this? Obviously we have to fix our closing. I could have changed that file while this was running, obviously. We don't even have any web caching. All right. This is working beautifully. Honestly, this went much faster than I expected. I started like 40 or so minutes ago. I was 2 minutes late. But yeah, we're done. We're done with the stuff that I wanted to do effectively, right? So for those who might not have been here the whole time, what we did now was basically we added static file serving to the server, right? So let's go back to our mechanism here for registering handlers and so on. I'll actually go over kind of vaguely how this works. We of course have thread state that is unique for each client, or rather like every client has its own thread state, right? Which is a socket and basically a reference to our registered handlers, right? The server structure is it's just handlers. We may as well have only handlers here, right? A registered handler is a combination of a matcher and a handler. And a matcher is a request, basically a function that takes a request and says, yes, I can handle this, right? And here are the rules, right? So it's just a predicate on a HTTP request that we have parsed, right? We're assuming that we have this request. A handler is a function that takes a socket, a request, and an allocator and does stuff, right? Basically, this is the endpoint, let's say. And I don't mean that in the sense that, in the webby sense, that was a poor choice of words. This is the final station, right? This is where stuff actually happens, meaning we have done the routing. Now it's up to this handler to actually do the thing, right? Send stuff to this socket here, right? And we have the request data here, which includes headers and so on. So when we register a handler, the only thing we're actually doing is we're adding to this dynamic array, right, of handlers, right? So we're adding our registered handler, right? And that includes a matcher and a handler like this, right? When we get a handler, we're really just going over the handlers one by one in the order they were added, right? Importantly. So it's like a priority list, basically. Not the priority list, but whatever, you get my point. So one by one, we're asking effectively, is the matcher associated with this handler? Does that say yes? If it does, we return the handler, right? Otherwise, we're going to return nil because we don't have a handler, right, for that thing. So here we do this in main. We set up our handlers like this. You can effectively see, in some sense, vaguely, this looks like a routing table or whatever it might be, right? And so here we ask these basic questions. If the path is really just slash, right, handle welcome, right? So we send the request to this handler. If it's slash WS, handle WebSocket, and that just sets up a basic WebSocket connection, basically, right? If it's slash static, this is what we added today, right? Handle static file, right? So if I go there, we'll see here that we're basically just saying, hey, remove slash static from the path and then open the file at that place. This, of course, is not what you would want to do in production, because if someone wanted now to access, I will actually demonstrate this because I think it can be useful, I think. And now I could be wrong, but we'll see if I'm wrong. So let's see if we can find a file here. We're gonna, let's see here if I can, right, changes.diff. Yeah. Nah, 13K. Don't want to open that one, to be honest. It's probably a lot of stuff. Let's say just backwards to talo ols.json, right? We're going to go backwards one step, like this, talo ols.json. Did I choose the wrong? Oh, what? Have they fixed this? Am I just old? Oh, hang on. No. We have to URL encode this, right? So hang on. URL encode dot period. Of course, I could open a console here, but let's see if we can. %2e. Let's try that. I would have thought it already did that, but let's try this. Okay, this is not quite working how I would want to show it. Yeah, the purpose of what I'm doing right now, I don't know if this is a browser thing that they sort this out. So there used to be this failure mode, basically, where you could basically, if someone was serving static files, you could essentially just jump to anywhere you wanted on their file system, right? By using relative paths, right? And of course, maybe we could do this here now. So if we do like this, static .talo ols.json. Is something else going on? Path /talo ols.json. Is everything fixed? I swear this should work. Should it not? I mean, it doesn't really make a lot of sense that it doesn't. But I feel like this is a client-side thing that curl and the browser has done, right? Anyway, the point is, if you don't sanitize this, at least back in the day, it used to be basically, we could move out of the directory we were supposed to be in, right? We could effectively jump out of the directory that was being served, right? And that's bad, obviously. It's not really nice. So, but I guess, honestly, that the browser has already sorted that out, because now when we do this static like this, it seems to just work somehow, because it just removes static now. And curl seems to kind of do the same. So I'm not entirely sure that this is even a problem anymore, right? Anyway, that was just me apparently being old. So whatever. So the idea here is that we replace this static path, right? And then we just calculate a MIME type, and this is very simply just a table of whatever, right? We're just saying, you know, for these things, return this, right? And if we can't find anything, it's an application octet stream, so that would be binaries and so on. Of course, for MP3 files and stuff, you would want to have other. This is not an exhaustive list. We would probably just use Copilot here to fill in a bunch of bullshit, to be honest. Or do what every ecosystem does and have a MIME type package for some reason, which is, yeah, whatever. Here we read the file that has been requested. We read the entire thing. You don't want to do this. You want to actually, you may want to use ranged HTML, like HTTP responses, or read a little bit of it at a time and actually send over and over instead, right? We're reading the entire thing here because just for basically for now, right? And then we put together a response, right? And this is obviously what an HTTP response looks like. We're just going to return 200 OK. We're going to say content type is MIME type here, and the content length is whatever the length is, and so on and so forth, right? And then we send the response, and that's really it. And that's how we get this static file serving, right? That's how we get static / web index, was it? Yeah. That's how we get this. And you can see here that we return 404s when something cannot be found. So if we look at the source here, we can see here in the head, we are referring to CSS files, right? These are of course automatically fetched by your browser, right? We don't have those. So, you know, these just 404. And they do this gracefully. There's nothing to it really. And then we use HDMX here. And that part, of course, like I showed before, the thing that's central to that whole thing is hxget here is automatically picked up by HDMX, and HDMX says if you click this element, we're gonna make a get request to this URL, and we're going to get content back that is going to be filled in here. And that's really it, right? That's basically how HDMX works, and that's how we can get this interactivity here, right? Did it become 0? Oh, yeah, we have we have a global state like this, right? Obviously this should this really ought to be whatever the number is from the beginning, right? But you could say NA here, and if we reload now, you will only get the actual value when you click something. This is not supposed to be, oh, what an app, right? But the interesting thing is that you only kind of need static files plus custom routes in order to use HDMX, right? I've done nothing here to do anything in particular, but we still have something that actually, you know, works to do stuff. At this point, the step to actually having something that, you know, looks vaguely like an actual web, let's call it a slightly less modern web app, right? It's not actually an app, but whatever. The steps we would have to take for setting up something that looks like most MVC things is really just basically storing data somewhere and fetching that data when stuff happens and so on, right? I'm curious now, actually. HDMX here. I would like to yeah, it's the fact that we're serving a static. We could serve the entire HTML not statically, which means we could use this counter value. It doesn't matter. I'm not going to bother with that, to be honest. But yeah. Wow. We're down to 2 viewers. That's interesting. Yeah. Okay. Anyway, what do we do now? Again, I finished doing the thing I wanted to do very fast. Probably I should have not overestimated this, right? What can we do with this? We could try to serve some images and so on, right? There's a page called Unsplash, if I remember. Unsplash. It's probably unsplash.com. Yes, it is. What if we... Well, yeah, you serve pay stuff from Unsplash, so that doesn't actually stress our static stuff, really. We could download images from here, I suppose, but whatever. Let's see if I can just... I don't remember here if I turned off this web server. I think I did. Let's see if we can... This is an old web server that I made in Zig. I'm really just going to use this now to serve some images and so on. Let's see if we can sort that out. Let's serve this on 4200, I suppose. I'm not picky with this. Oh, it's not on guns, bro. Hang on. Oh, it's not HTTPS, by the way, at all. Unable to connect. There you go. Let's see here. Code. Where do I have code? Odin? Where are you? Can't read. HTTP web, not web, probably. Whatever. We're gonna save it here for now. Hoppa. We're gonna save it there, whatever. So here we have a cute lion. Actually, we can steal this whole page. Save page as. I haven't used this in forever. Cute lion HTML. And here we will, sure, whatever, man. I'm gonna steal the style sheet from this page as well. Plagiarism. I mean, it's my style sheet, to be fair. It's not good either, but we're gonna do it anyway. What in the fuck is going on? Google Ads iframe? How did this end up in my... Is it extension stuff? What the fuck is this? Well, that's dumb as fuck. Anyway. T.js. What is this? What have I been serving? Oh, yeah, I remember. Yeah, okay, hang on. That makes sense. Let's see what this one is. Let's steal this also. We're gonna curl this actually. Oh, right. E-tags and stuff. Yeah. We're gonna add that to this web server as well. Cache control, basically. You can send e-tags back with the M time, the modified time and so on. It's very good. That way you can actually work with the cache to make things a lot easier and so on. That would actually require a file stat here, by the way, which we might add, like I said, because it's good. It's a very simple way to do stuff. So what was I doing here? I was saying, let's say web index here. Let's actually say cute lion HTML. What is happening here? Like, what is this? Credentials picker iframe. How the fuck did this end up actually? This is some stupid extension has injected this. Google one-tap modal. I would literally never use this. How the fuck did this end up being the case? There are no Google ads on this page. I don't understand what this even is. Fucking disgusting what this is. Cute lion files, style CSS. This may be not what we want actually, but Is that actually a thing? Cute lion files. Oh, hang on, did this save? Yeah, the actual save function of sure, okay. The save function of the browser saved these files, I suppose. Fuck it, let's just try opening it. We're gonna do this one, static web, cute lion, HTML, like this, yeah. Yeah. There you go. We're serving the image, it's fine. This should now have 0 cache control or whatever. It's presumably completely garbage. We can remove TJS as well. It seems like a bunch of nonsense. This actually, TJS was basically a tracking script that sent events to an Elixir web server that I had running. It might actually still be running somewhere. I don't remember actually when this was. It's quite a while ago. So basically, TJS here was a tracking script that added basically a mouse over click handlers and so on to every element on the page in order to basically send a bunch of data to a web server that I had running, and for no reason really. It was effectively my version of stupid Google spyware, effectively. Not spyware, but you know, tracking scripts and so on. It's complete nonsense. Let's see here. Cute line file styles, CSS. Yeah, okay. I think that's fine actually. Now we're not getting TJS here at all. But where the fuck is this script in that case? You know, because obviously I had it at some point here, but then you wonder, right, where the fuck did that go? Actually, let's do this in the same. Yeah, it's not here. It's not there, obviously. Where the fuck have I put this? I could do a sudo find here, but whatever, man. It's not that interesting, to be honest. I do have a block list in the old web server because I had lots of IPs that were really annoying when they would just sort of they would do requests for obvious PHP exploits and so on, and it was super tedious. So I added a block list to the other server, which we'll probably implement in this one as well. Hey, recently found your channel via discussion of Odin Zig. Just recently started playing with Odin for making small games and such. Yeah, I remember. I have seen your comment actually, yeah. Welcome to the stream. We're building a web server. And today I added static file serving and so on. And so where we were is we added just recently this way to add handlers for specific routes. So hang on, let me see here. Let's actually add a comment here, routing. I will be able to see this much more clearly. So what I added in our previous session was basically this here, being able to say if the URL has a prefix /static, for example, right? We want to pass that request to some kind of handler and so on. So the one I added today was basically handle static file here. Yeah, it's a lot easier if someone has a normal name, indeed. Hello, Max. So basically what I decided, the first thing I did now when I actually got these static files to be served, is basically we made this very simple page here using HDMX, which is a way to get very cheap interactivity on a web page without having any kind of frameworks and no extra JavaScript or whatever that runs and so on. So the idea here is if you go now to let's see here, static web index .html, you actually get this page, and we can increment and decrement a counter here and so on. And yeah, that's basically what that is. And so now when we have the capability to serve these files, these static files and so on, you know, we can basically serve pages like this, normal static pages and so on, and that is kind of what I wanted to accomplish. And I realized, because this is another web server I made in Zig way back when, we also actually want e tags. So you can see here at the right side, we have this e tag. And an e tag is basically a way of just saying, here's an identifier that basically effectively tells you the caching state of the file currently, right? So if we have sent an e tag, right, for a file, basically what the client can say is it can keep that e file or e tag and then act accordingly, basically, and so on. So that we probably want to add that. I'm not going to do that now though, because it's certainly something you want in a web server, but not necessarily what I want to do right now. So yeah, actually, if we click this too fast, can we make it? Doesn't matter. I wanted to see if maybe we could make it, you know, not react to some of these, but basically it seems to be doing fine anyway. And these increments, by the way, when I click here, what actually happens here is that we get a GET request to HDMX increment, right? And so what I've done there is that I have said here, handle HDMX increment is a handler for that route, right? That basically just says, hey, increment this counter, right? And then send back the result as a HTML, because that's how HDMX works. And it's really just, yeah, the reason this is the first thing I came, you know, to think of is because, I mean, truthfully, I just don't like, you know, the way you get interactivity in most, let's say, web projects, right? React and so on is just so tedious and, you know, ugh. And I would say overwhelmingly I prefer normal MVC, right? It's straightforward. You have a request, you have a response. There's really not that much to it, and so on. And HDMX is a really nice way to kind of get some interactivity. Of course, we can replace single parts of a web page and so on, but we're still working in a fundamentally fairly straightforward request response kind of world, right? And that is exactly where we are with this web server right now. We can deal with requests and send responses to them, right? You know, so yeah, I'm actually, we've reached a point actually where I'm quite happy with what we can potentially actually do here with this. Of course, again, there's stuff I want to add. There's basically an infinitely long list of stuff you can add to a web server in the end. But we have something, you know, fairly straightforward, fairly, you know, reasonably workable here. So yeah, I'm liking it. What game are you making, Max? I'm always curious when people say, you know, making games. I don't want to put you on the spot, you know, but it's an interesting thing to do, right? Yeah, I mean, this is good. Making small toy games, I think, is how you get comfortable just making a basic structure of a game, right? Importantly, making toy games does not involve like making an engine and all these things, right? Necessarily, which is actually the point, right? It's more about, yeah, I can realize an actual concept instead of making a bunch of supporting infrastructure over a long time, right? Because making a bunch of supporting infrastructure, that's what you do for things that require it, right? Or you can, at least. But it's not necessarily the best way to get stuff done and move through projects, learning, and so on. Permaculture simulation, dealing water movement across geography. Dealing with water movement across geography. Okay, that is a very interesting thing, right? That sounds very interesting. It reminds me a little bit, there's this economy simulation game. That's a terrible search, but I'm hoping I'm just gonna end up in the right place. I did not end up in the right place. Simple economy simulation. It was a... hang on. This one, maybe. So here, yeah, this is the one. This the same stuff you're doing reminds me of this. So this thomassimon.dev ps/4 is the URL. I'm gonna paste it in the chat actually. I'm not saying, oh, everyone go look at this now. I'm saying, for posterity's sake, whatever. This is actually a very interesting kind of simulation for testing out different theories about if you have a very simple economic model, like people need to eat, people need water, they can provide services, everyone has a different service or whatever, you have different kind of classes of people. It starts with just farmers, right? Farmers doing bartering, right? Eventually it grows into you need money, right? And you need the state to have a representative that works, they work for money, they can spend money with people, they need food, which they need to have from the farmers and so on. So it's, it goes through these steps. This reminds me a lot of this, right? Where you take some kind of concept that you want to explore and you want to visualize it, right? It's not so much a game as it is playing around with these things, right? Because this sounds to me like what you're doing, right? You modify a dry, high desert landscape over time using real geography and historical weather and precipitation data. Yeah, that's very interesting. This is actually, stuff like this is very underrated to do, I think, because there's no real requirement here, right? You can find your way into a lot of fun by doing this, right? As in, you can actually stumble upon a lot of fun in some ways. Like, hey, this is actually fun to play around with. What if I added this and now it's in some ways, it becomes a game. It's like, actually there were games back in the day, a little bit, that remind me about this, right? So if anyone has played Dope Wars, I suppose it was called Drug Wars at some point, but Dope Wars is how I know this game. And apparently nowadays it's a open source blockchain gaming ecosystem. Oh my god. Anyway, Dope Wars was this game where, yeah, this is the exact interface I remember. Holy shit, there's 5 pixels in this image. How did this happen? Yeah, so here, right? And of course, this is not a simulation. Just don't get me wrong. I'm not saying that this is in any way really actually simulating much of anything. It's a way to basically, you can move to these places, right? Bronx. ghetto Central Park, Brooklyn, and so on. And you will have available drugs, and you can actually buy them, and you can sell them somewhere else, and so on, right? Now, you can imagine if you put some intelligence behind something like this, right? It suddenly becomes a lot more interesting, right? If you put maybe a much more dynamic system behind something like this, where you have different market forces and so on, it becomes in some sense both an exploration of what if I try to put more and more realism for some model of realism, let's say an economic model or something, into this thing, right? And then you put some interactivity in there to kind of make it fun to do. And I will say this, I loved this when I was a kid. You know, I didn't really necessarily have a concept of like, oh yeah, selling drugs is cool or whatever. That wasn't really the point, right? It was more like, you know, this is just fun stuff, right? And it was very low effort as well, right? You just click these buttons, go to the place, you can buy and sell and, you know, stuff, right? It's fun. And I think that's exactly the kind of thing where you can explore a lot of, you can find a lot of fun in to work on, right? And it's much more exploratory than just saying, hey, I want to make a game that is like my favorite game, right? Because if I just sit down and I try to first of all, like it's super hard for me to recreate Hitman, right? Hitman Blood Money or whatever. It's just super hard to do, right? And even worse, the idea that I'm going to recreate Hitman and then add some actual value to Hitman is ridiculous, right? It just makes no sense. I'm going to find something that's unique to me by playing around with much less involved ideas first, right? And so on. And yeah, indeed. Indeed. Roller Coaster Tycoon, again, the connection to drugs here is tenuous, right? Just as the connection to actually running a theme park is very limited, let's say. In Roller Coaster Tycoon, it was more about, in some ways it's about just looking at people. To me it was this, basically. I don't think I launched very many unsuspecting visitors over snack stands into the lake. I've always been fascinated with these games where you can, in some ways, you can stop playing and look at the people in the game, right? This has always fascinated me. It was in Theme Hospital, right? So for those who might not know, Theme Hospital, there was this great game called Theme Hospital back in the day. Holy shit. Yeah, there aren't that many pixels in some of these pictures. Let's see. So yeah, okay, it's not getting better there. So basically these are all people, right? And you build a hospital that you have to maintain and so on. And you have to have toilets, you have to hire people, you have to do all kinds of stuff, right? And it's a little bit goofy because, you know, it's a game, it's cartoony and stuff. But you have like, these are people, right? This guy, T. Podlin, is an ex-quiz show host. He's stressed and prone to mistakes, right? And these are actual, like, they're not actual people. I'm not saying they're actually people there, right? But one thing that fascinated me back in the day was that you could basically stop playing Theme Hospital at some point and just look at it. And basically click on the people, right? This guy here has some profile of some sort, right? He has a malady that he is afflicted with, and he has to be diagnosed so they know what to do about it, and so on. But more importantly, you can actually click on this and see who that is, right? He has a fake name and, you know, stuff. And you can sort of just stop playing. And here you can see, like, when you stop playing for long enough, here you can see this is puke everywhere, right? Because people are sick and so on. But yeah, so this always fascinated me. I think, you know, these kinds of games are really, they were really interesting back in the day. Because somehow, right, I was much more, I used to dream about basically, effectively the Tron scenario, right? where there's a civilization living inside of the computer, right? And so on. This used to be, I mean, this is from way back. I don't even know that I had seen the concept in even a movie, to be honest. But it just felt so natural somehow, right? That this was something I want to build, right? And yeah, core to all of this, and why I started talking about all of this, right, is in order for a game to be the kind of game you can just stop playing and look at, it has to be a simulation, right? Because otherwise, yeah, in, you know, Call of Duty, you're not gonna just stop and look at the people that's not playing, that's not really the game anymore, right? Because in some ways you are affecting that by just standing there, right? And it's not very fun either, right? It's just a bunch of people 360 no scoping all over the place or whatever, right? It doesn't, you know. But simulations, right? They just sort of, when you build one that is interesting enough, people can just sort of look at it. They can just study it, like what is happening. Like there's so many things going on and so on. And I think that's really beautiful. Yeah, Dwarf Fortress is like, I don't think that there is one that, certainly not as publicized, right? In terms of how advanced it is, right? Yeah, exactly. People watching, that is exactly, right? I'm basically just sort of fascinated by the system. I've always wanted to kind of understand systems when I see them, right? And this is one of those things where you can sort of, yeah, you can just stop and look at what everything that's happening is. So there's so much, right? It's so rich. Well, yeah, Dwarf Fortress is a great example of this. You couldn't possibly understand everything that's happening in Dwarf Fortress like while it's happening. You can read about it, right? Oh, now I know cats use their paws on their, you know, eyes or whatever, like stuff like this. But you couldn't actually understand any of this while it's happening. It is just so vast. Yeah, I mean, and this is basically kind of what I'm saying, right? This kind of stop playing the game and see what goes on, right? This is really it fascinates me, this kind of thing. And yeah, simulations is where you want this, right? One fairly early, but not that early. Actually, now I'm gonna be so surprised now. The Sims was, please tell me this was not released in like 2004. When was this released? Holy shit, where have I ended up? What is this? Give me a wiki page. Oh shit, it was in 2000. Okay, so I thought that this was maybe not that old, but apparently it is. Anyway, 2000, right? The Sims, first The Sims, was also this kind of fascinating, you know, thing, right? I think, yeah, this is definitely one of those things where, wow, like you can actually just, effectively you can turn off just playing the game, right? And it's, you know, it's fascinating in when you have enough people, they will just sort of do stuff, right? Civ 3 with all AI players. Yeah, that's an interesting scenario as well. Actually, I've done this, you know, I've done this even in games where the idea is not the simulation, right? I don't know if anyone, probably no one likes these games, but the UFC games for Xbox and PlayStation, right? UFC, whatever the fuck, some number, right? If you play tournaments, right? I found this fascinating as well. Not because the quality of the AI is especially good. It's really not. But it is interesting to watch two AIs kind of fight, right? Because when you watch that, right? You can do it accidentally, or you can say like, I have a tournament where we actually have 8 players. I'm one of them, right? I'm not going to play any of the others, for example, right? Then you get to watch basically a bunch of AI matches, right? And it's interesting, like it's fascinating to see actually the complexity that has to reside in some of these AI, implementations, right? And of course, this is not AI in the quote unquote computer science sense. It's AI in the gaming sense, right? Anything that is just, making decisions is AI in the end, right? But I always find that fascinating, right? Because there's so much complexity that has to go into some of these things, right? Because the idea behind the AI in the UFC games is that when a move gets executed too much, they will start to try to anticipate it and so on, right? And this builds up to a pretty, interesting kind of logic, right? Because they have to have some level of memory and so on, right? That they deal with, this is very fascinating, right? And then, and that's a very simple context. It's just two people trying to hit each other in the face or whatever, or two AIs, right? In this case. But yeah, there's so much that goes into this, right? And some of it can be surprisingly simple, I think, when you find out how they actually did stuff like this, right? Because there's this, for example, there's this simple case of, okay, so we're playing some kind of game and the enemies can attack you, right? How do they choose who to attack and so on, right? And this can be everything from just a very, very simple priority list of like who's closest to me, what weapon do I have, and so on, to, what role is this person playing? Are they currently casting a very important spell? Can we preempt actions? Like I was doing one thing, but now I'm doing a different thing, and so on, right? There's so much that can go into this. It's very interesting. Actually, hang on. Okay. We were talking about simulations, right? Simulations, yeah. Well, yeah, it's interesting. I think these are the coolest small things that you can do, actually, if I'm being honest. Like, because yeah, you can make whatever. You can make breakout, or you can make breakout is the one with the ball that is bouncing upwards, right? Let me. Yeah, this one. Yeah, ball bouncing upwards. It hits these things. You get score. There are special, pop-up or power-ups that go downwards. Breakout, right? You can make this, and that's cool. It absolutely is worth doing because it's a very simple concept, and you can actually deal with a game loop, right? You can learn how a game loop works, right? But simulations, in some ways, you're exploring the game while making it, right? Or exploring the simulation while you're making it, right? Which is really a lot more interesting. It doesn't actually necessarily turn out more fun, right? But it's certainly more interesting to you, the maker, I feel, usually. So let's make some plans for the HTTP server. We have our stuff. We have our handlers. We can register different handlers doing different things. I suppose it is time for the next stream to actually work on our WebSocket stuff. Previously we did handle WebSocket here. We probably want to abstract a few of these things, so we probably could say, hey, make a function to parse the required headers for WebSockets, right? That would be a lot of this code, actually. We could, in fact, actually replace basically this code here with that, right? So that's a lot. We could do that. And that would take care of a few of these things. And then we could effectively, we could say this WebSocket receive Here we parse a WebSocket fragment, and the fragment is really just a single message, effectively, on a WebSocket. And it turns out it's really not that much more that you need to do. In fact, most clients don't actually fragment stuff that much. And even if you were to do that, you could absolutely write, you know, the logic here for doing that very easily. And so we might want to throw together something like a WebSocket-based file server, perhaps. Maybe something a little bit more interesting. I am curious if maybe we should go straight to building a Discord bot, right? Because the Discord bot idea was why I started working on the WebSocket stuff. Because there are events that you can receive only via WebSocket when you build Discord bots, right? And so you need the Discord WebSocket client. And we made that client, and then we made the server side of that. Because it's, in some ways, it's trivial to make the server side of that because the fragments are all the same if you send or receive them, really. So I'm wondering if we should go straight to a Discord bot, and then I can put that on the Discord server. And we can actually start building, you know, things for it, you know, real interactive things. I'm curious, actually, YouTube chatbot live stream. Is that a thing? Like, you know, Nightbot on Twitch? Does anyone know how this works? I'm not gonna watch any of these videos on this. So Nightbot actually works for, you can use it for YouTube, right? But then how do you build one? Because I'm not gonna add some standard whatever. Aha, a live chat message. Resource. Represent a chat message in a YouTube live chat. The resource can contain details about several types of messages, including a newly posted text message or fan funding event. Yeah, so what I'm thinking, right, is I might want a bot for the live streams, right? But I'm not gonna add some random ass bot because that's not fun, right? I want to instead build one, right? And the live streaming API here that is documented is probably what I want. So this will probably be a project as well that we can do. We need an API key, blah, blah, blah. Now, that's going to be an interesting thing though, because we have an HTTP client-ish, right? But I'm going to have to extend this a lot, presumably. Because if there's anything I know about Google as a company is that they absolutely hate HTTP, right? They will force you to use HTTPS. So there's zero chance that I can get past this without using TLS. Right, so I'm gonna have to add TLS support to the client, which I didn't really want to do yet, right? Because it's, you know, tedious. But I suppose this is a thing that we want to do actually. Running mid-rolls and shit. Live broadcast contains information about an event that you're broadcasting on YouTube. A live broadcast resource is an extension of a YouTube video resource and sets video metadata that would be pertinent to a live broadcast but not to other YouTube videos. And sets video metadata. As such, a live broadcast resource corresponds to exactly one YouTube video resource. In fact, the live broadcast resource and the video resource share the same ID. And after creating the broadcast using the live streaming API, you can use the YouTube data API to provide additional metadata about the video. I'm not sure I want to do that. I just want to, I don't know. Where were these live messages? Client libraries. Let's see, live broadcast. Messages, chat, live chat ID. Right, so I have a live broadcast. In that resource, I have live chat ID as well. That would be okay. Live chat messages is over here as well. So can I list these for a resource? Lists live chat messages for a specific chat. Let's see if we can try this. Okay, what is this live chat ID? Can I see mine? I mean, I don't know if I can. I would hope that the ID was the same as the actual video, but I don't think that that's the case. You have invalid or missing required parameters. Which ones are required? Let's see. Live chat ID and part. Okay. Snippet. Let's just say that and hope, I guess. Where is it supposed to actually show the result? Do I have to enable a bunch of bullshit? Of course I do. Whatever, dude. Page token is not valid. I don't know. Well, I don't know what that means. It's left. I haven't said anything there. Well, what is this? Page, yeah, well. Maybe they mean the live chat ID, because obviously I haven't actually, I have no idea about what that live streams. List. By ID, list my streams. Sure. Part. Okay. Execute. Do we have to do this every time? Jesus Christ, man. Right. We're getting a live stream list response with this e tag and so on. We have a snippet here. I mean, presumably you would now tell me that there's a an ID for this, but I'm not really getting that, I guess. Maybe I have to ask for more. Like I need more stuff here or something. Opa, that wasn't what I wanted at all. List my streams, yeah. Sure. What more can I ask for? Part. ID, snippet, CDN, and status. Oh, that's what we have. So that's listing live streams. But what is a live chat message actually for? Right, what is that for? Because this requires you to have stuff. Live chat ID. But did we get that with the live streams? I don't feel like we did, but I guess we can check again. Mine true, yeah, I guess. Hang on, this is probably the ID, right? Let's try that one. Give that to live chat messages. This is the ID, probably. And the part that we wanted was something. ID, snippet, author, details. Like this. Execute maybe. Page token is not valid. This is not optional then, right? Why is this an optional parameter if it can be invalid? I'm sorry. Like what's that even mean? Because I'm not getting this at all. Like if I have to provide this, then tell me I have to provide this, you know? And this says it's a live chat ID. So it is the thing that I got from snippet.livechatid. Let's just copy this again and see what we have there. Items, snippet. There's no live chat ID. Fuck. What? I have a live stream on right now. Why would we not see this? Is it in live broadcast? That can't be the case. This is just not the same, right? Items, snippet, live chat ID. Why is this different? I don't understand. What is a live stream and a live broadcast then? Like, why is this different? I don't understand that at all. Let's say I go here to live chat messages, right? We're gonna keep both of these open because I'm tired of switching between them, but and here we do this one. Here we do ID snippet author details. We execute. Now we get 200. Okay, fair enough, right? Hey, recently found your channel, etc. Yeah, that's Max's first message. Author details, blah, blah, blah. Okay. So here's how you can get these messages. Now I'm curious though. Do they have, does anyone know, does YouTube have just a, you know, a fire hose you can effectively just connect to and you get streamed events from? Because this is obviously like, this is a GET request. I don't want to have something that just executes a GET request, right? because I want something to basically connect to them and get sent events, right, when they happen instead, right? Because that makes a lot more sense to me than asking for events, right? Because then you just get polling is terrible. I don't want to do that. Wow, there's a lot. Does YouTube have a WebSocket? I don't know. I'm just gonna say that. Yeah, I mean, polling is just sort of, I don't know. I just really don't want to deal with having to do things over and over and see, oh, are there any new messages since, you know, the last one? And of course you can control this with parameters. I'm sure they have like, hey, the last ID of a message I saw was this one. Tell me if you have any new ones. But this is kind of tedious, right? And I really just want them to have something where I can connect to it. They send me events, and that's it, you know. Web sub. Why is that? This is not quite the same, right? I don't want notifications. I want just events, anything. Because this is like subscriptions and so on. And that's not really the thing, right? V3 API. What was I looking at? If this is the version, yeah, this is the same API. Resources. Maybe that's the problem. I've been focused on this resource stuff for live stuff, right? Live streaming API reference. I mean, this is the thing, so I'm not entirely sure. Yeah. Why is this guy mentioning? You haven't talked about WebSub, which is supported by YouTube Data API version 3 and works for videos feed. Indeed, it's not using WebSub, but simply because servers send notifications to a remote server instead of repeating users' requests to YouTube very regularly. Sure. Yeah, I'm not sure if this is actually what I'm looking for. Because this push notification stuff, what do they actually, you know, contain? I don't think that this is what I'm looking for. Right, because we would want... Also, why is live stream stuff not present here? Is this just a hole in their documentation, or is it actually the case? Because you would think, oh, live streams, it's here, right? You would think, but maybe, yeah. Maybe this is why YouTube is losing in live streams. right? Yeah, whatever, man. We're gonna make some kind of bot in any case for the live streams. Like I said, maybe the next step here right now, or not right now, but for future streams, maybe the Discord bot is really the next step when it comes to the WebSocket stuff. I'm not sure. The web server, I'm a little bit curious what to do. Maybe someone has some ideas for what to do with the web server, right? So what we have right now is we can register effectively on a certain, like based on this question about a request, we can say, yes, I'm gonna handle that. And then we can handle it in a specific function that is being basically relayed to, right? So we have that. We have basically, we can set up these handlers, and the handlers do certain things and so on. We have a WebSocket server side, WebSocket client side. We could make some interesting WebSocket based protocol, for example, for, you know, sending files or doing something interesting, I suppose. We could make effectively a WebSocket firehose for events, right? We could effectively make some kind of event backend that might gather data from somewhere, and you know, you can effectively connect to the firehose and get those events that the server actually gathers. In that case, we could actually make a YouTube firehose, right? We could do the polling in a web server. We could set up the WebSocket firehose, and when we find new events, we broadcast them to the WebSockets, basically. And then we have one spot that is polling, right? It polls the YouTube API for live stream events, live chat events, and so on. And then it would broadcast this out, right? Just to make it clear, the only reason I would be doing this in Odin is because it's fun, right? Normally speaking, when we're talking about this type of scenario, I would just do this in Erlang, right? Because it's absolutely trivial to do in Erlang, in fact. Even with many thousands of WebSockets connections, you would be fine, basically. I'll be honest that I do not foresee that being necessarily the situation here with Odin, but you know, we could basically try doing this, right? So then we could create the YouTube firehose, right? And whenever we have a new YouTube chatbot, for example, that needs to read messages, that chatbot would have an open connection, an open WebSocket connection to our firehose, right? It's actually a good idea. And it will work too. And so the polling really only needs to be done on the server, basically, right? Of course, I still have to fix I have to add basically SSL, HTTPS support to the HTTP client, and I'm not interested in this at all right now. It's just not, I didn't foresee having to do that necessarily, right? But if we are going to fetch YouTube events and send them to our own WebSocket connections, then we do need to talk to the YouTube API. So I suppose that's actually kind of the next sub project, is adding TLS support, basically. And I'm definitely not implementing TLS or anything in Odin myself. I don't want to do that at all, to be honest. We're going to use something. We're going to use a C library for this, basically, to negotiate some of this stuff. I think that's going to be it, basically, to be honest. That's probably going to be very fiddly and really annoying, to be honest. Most of the work I'm probably going to do offline for that. So I can have something that actually works, and we can actually spend the streams doing maybe something that is a little bit more, you know, doing stuff, instead of just trying to get TLS stuff working and so on. So yeah, I think that's the next step. To be honest, we're going to be adding TLS stuff to HTTP client, right? And then effectively, I will just try to make this work somehow with the YouTube API. And then we're going to set up an endpoint in our web server that you can connect to get a WebSocket connection up and running. And on that WebSocket connection, you will receive events for the live stream that is currently happening, right? Basically, so you will receive chat events and so on. Potentially then, I might actually solve a problem as well. I don't know exactly how much this YouTube API does, but there's one thing that annoys me a lot. Let's see here, live broadcasts. There's a thing that happens with the live broadcasts and so on that annoys me to no end. If I go here, for example, right? I'm looking at information for a live broadcast, right? When I do this, can I see who the fuck is in this broadcast? Because I can literally only see when I don't know if anyone has streamed on YouTube, right? But I can only see the people who are chatting, right? I have no concept of the lurkers. Like, for all I know, Max is the only one actually here right now, right? But I can see there are 7 supposedly concurrent viewers, right? Now it went down to 6 now, but my point is, I have no idea, right? I don't know any names. On Twitch, this would not be an issue, right? You just see who is in the actual chat, right? It's not a problem. But here, it just sort of, you know, I have no concept of who is here. I can't address people who showed up. You know, what I would like is an API that can tell me, did someone actually open this window, right? And so if we're looking at this, if I could potentially get events like that, we actually have a great opportunity then to build our own firehose that sends us events when someone joins and leaves and sends messages, obviously. Because then we can basically have WebSockets that give us that information. And I can literally show that information to you guys on screen while it's happening, right? This would be neat. We could even have like a user list and so on. And yeah, the participants is useless to me. Like, it's not that because I can see who's chatting. I pay attention to this, generally speaking, right? And hello, by the way, Ivana, my beautiful wife, and also Jishan, who is not my wife. But yeah. But yeah, it would be useful, right? Because then I can actually see like, oh, these are the people who are actually here, and I can greet them. And of course, if someone wants to stay in the shadows, I don't mind that. The problem I have is that I just have no information while stuff is happening, right? That if I look at the competitor, the most obvious competitor to live streaming on YouTube is Twitch, right? They have this. It's not a problem. Like it's literally just a chat room. Of course you can see who's online, right? Here we have nothing. Like it's just bare, you know? And I want this thing now. Now I'm 100% like, I will find out whether we can do this, because this actually would help, right? And I can even have like my own notification saying someone came into the, you know, stuff. And then we have a super clear-cut case for, yeah, we are building the YouTube event firehose, because then I can connect different bots to this. I can connect different programs that listen to these events and so on, right? Yeah, exactly. Like this is the problem, Max, right? I just have, unless someone says, you know, hey everyone, they basically don't exist. And that's really not good, right? Because the reason I'm doing these streams obviously is if someone shows up, I want to be able to, you know, say, hi, you know, here's what we're doing and stuff. Or I might remember someone from a previous stream and they talked to that stream. Now they don't, and I don't know that they're here, right? Hello, Chris, you do exist. Now you exist, right? Because you said something. I speak, therefore I am, is kind of how YouTube works, right? You don't exist until you say something. But yeah, this is, if we can solve this thing, that would be a very clear-cut case of, yes, this is now added value to the actual live streams, right? We could get potentially this kind of, you know, list of people somehow, right? Actually, I could just Google for this, I don't know. Is it possible to get a list of users in a live stream on YouTube? Well, you're still here now, Chris. Unless you left now, which would be an interesting move. I think YouTube now considers you here for some time, at least. Live stats endpoint. Oh, number of viewers. Fuck that. Okay. Live streaming detail. Now these are only getting us like numbers, right? The guy was asking for a list of users, right? Not just a number of users. It is not a pre. If this was pre-recorded, it would be a lot better than it is, to be honest. But no, it is not a pre-recorded live stream, indeed. If only it could be, you know, but no. No, obviously I want to do the live streams. I do them because they are live. That's also why the quality is so low, and so on. But it's about this, right? It's about actually talking to people, to be honest. For the most part, when it comes to these random projects, sometimes I do something very specific, you know. And to be completely fair, the last two streams we have done the thing I was supposed to be doing so fast that then we have sort of just talking, you know, started talking about, you know, bullshit stuff, like, you know, which, you know, I do enjoy, to be fair. Yeah, this guy's asking the real questions. Like, is there a way to get the actual users, you know? Man, YouTube is so bad in some ways, right? I can't be the only one thinking this while we're looking for all of this stuff, right? It's like they want to compete with Twitch, right? And I think that there are some things they do really well, right? The bitrate supported on YouTube is actually better than Twitch, right? And so on. So they've done that part, I guess, well, right? But then there's so much that they're just sort of oblivious to, I feel like. Like they don't get that people want to, for example, write these things and so on. They want to actually have a reasonable API they can use for interacting with stuff, right? But they sort of just haven't done stuff. Like the idea that you can't get a list of participants, or that this is something you even have to ask about, right? The idea that you actually have to find a Stack Overflow answer that gives you the wrong information and the right information isn't anywhere in YouTube's API documentation, for example, is ridiculous, right? This is just ridiculous that they would try to compete with Twitch, like, because as you say, Max, right? Yeah, Twitch have realized you don't get a platform without interactivity, and some of that interactivity has to be automatic. It has to be actually be based on programs running, having a bot to answer questions, having a system for betting on what's going to happen in the stream, stuff like this, right? And this is all about extensibility via development, right? But YouTube is just so impotent in some ways, right? They just don't get it. And I guess that's why they're failing, right? Yeah. I don't know. Very, very tedious stuff. This sometimes, you know, like, yeah. Yeah, I don't know. Everyone's basically saying exactly the stuff we don't want to hear. You can only see people who actually actively participate. Right? Boring that's the case, but I guess it is how you know how it is. I know ChatGPT isn't always correct. However, have you tried using that? No, I have not asked about this, to be fair. Hang on. Let me do this off screen. I don't wanna. Let's see here. Not that there's anything, but I basically have to double check here. Yeah, fuck it, man. Let's see here. New chat. Yeah, you never know what's on your screen, right? It could be just something, you know, it's not bad, but it's just, you don't want to have that show up on screen. Let's see here. Can I get a list of users inactive or active in a YouTube live stream that I am the owner of? YouTube does not provide a complete list of every viewer. I mean, this tracks what we've seen before, right? So this is only reinforcing what we've seen before. So we do have a lot of indications that absolutely you don't get any like, oh, here are all the users, right? I mean, it's basically saying exactly what we heard before, which is, honestly, I wouldn't trust it if it said anything else either, so I guess fair enough, right? But actually I should make this larger so people can read it, maybe. In any case, yeah, you can see, of course, super chats. I don't have super chats yet anyway, doesn't matter. Active participants, you can see, of course, we saw this before with the live messages, right? And we have a plan for turning that into an event stream and so on. So I think we can do that fairly easily. YouTube does not provide a complete list of every viewer. You can't see inactive users. You can only see information of like aggregate, I guess. Okay. It is what it is. I suppose we just have to live with that, right? Yeah. Boring, but okay, it is what it is. We have a plan, regardless. It starts with a lot of tedium, probably tomorrow, adding TLS to our HTTP client. And then we use the YouTube API. Yeah, I mean, basically the only information I'm actually looking for is the same thing you would get on Twitch, right? Chris, right? So that is effectively the thing that I'm looking for. Just having an active user list that you can see effectively, right? Because I do think in terms of interacting with users and so on, I do think it's, yeah, I don't know. Maybe it's the fact that I'm just so small that makes it very, you know, boring, because sometimes I have no one talking, right? And the fact that it says concurrent viewers 8 at that point, means nothing to me, you know. They may as well not be there. There's no indication that they exist effectively, except just some random number that I have no idea if it's correct or not, right? And I just want basically like a user list that tells me the same thing. Yeah, I just want the same information as on Twitch in the end. Actually, what do you mean inactive user could mean any user on YouTube? I mean, if you're in a live stream and you haven't said anything, you're inactive. That's what it means. To be honest, right? It can't actually mean anything else, because if you're chatting, you're not inactive. So I don't know. Maybe you could clarify what you mean. And now I don't know if he's left even. Because it's like, well, there's no indication. Hello, let's say. How are you doing? Yeah, the participants list is basically like if you haven't participated in a while, right? You will disappear, I guess, basically, as well. Yeah, IRC would have been a lot better than this, to be honest. And it's not even that they reinvented the wheel; they don't even have the wheel, right? Because reinventing the wheel would mean actually having everything as well, right? At least what makes a fucking wheel, right? But YouTube decided to invent something. They didn't reinvent anything. No. YouTube knows exactly who is watching, Chris. Come on. They track literally everything you do on YouTube, right? If you didn't participate at all in this stream, they would still know exactly when you joined, when you opened the stream, and when you closed it, right? So, you know, think a little bit, right? It's not that they can't produce this information. They just somehow don't, right? Because they don't get it. Yeah, I know what you meant, Max. Like, they reinvented a wheel. It's just it happens to be a shitty wheel, right? With not the information that you want and so on. That doesn't support what we actually want or need or whatever. It is a wheel. It's a shitty one. Anyway, so the plan is, yes, the minimum viable wheel. Let's see, HTTPS TLS. Yeah, now I'm thinking about TLS. Probably I'm gonna have to do this tomorrow. Offline, like I said. We're gonna end the stream soon. Probably. But yeah, so to recap what we did today, in case anyone is new or whatever, what we did basically was we added this handler for static files. Right. Static file here, this one. So whenever we request /static/something, it goes to this handle static file thing here, which basically just looks, you know, on the hard drive for a file and so on, and then sends the content of that file. What we built with this basically was, if I can find something here, this one here, right? So here we have web index.html. This is just a file on the hard drive. If we load this here, I'm actually going to restart the server, not for any real reason, just to restart the counter on the page, to be honest. We also added, basically, we have this file, right? Web index. Opa, that's a cute lion. Web index. We added these /htmx decrement and increment things here, right? Which basically makes this go up and down like this, right? The way this actually works is that this script, HDMX script here, looks for hx get and so on. And basically what actually happens on the web server when we click one of these, we're going to get a get request to /htmx/decrement, right? And so with this, we have this handle HDMX increment and handle HDMX decrement, right? All that these actually do right now is just say increment the counter and send the HDML, you know, as a response, right? And what HDMX does when it sees this is basically takes the response and then puts it in the count ID element. So it fills this content here, right? And this is how we can get very, very simple, basic, you know, interactivity on a web page without having any, you know, extra, basically not some big JavaScript. Either, you know, we write the actual script ourselves or whatever. So we have no jQuery or anything interesting really running here, and so on. We just do this with basic request response structures instead, right? And yeah, this is how we can basically get some level of interactivity from essentially just supporting HTTP request response, right? So MVC based, basically. Of course, this is not MVC. This is literally just, hey, we have an entire handler here, blah, 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 and so on. But yeah, this is the thing. And yeah, so the next step, like I said, if you wanted to do more with this, of course, like there's something we could do, I don't know, serving static files, fine. Obviously we can serve non-static stuff here. That's exactly what the handle HDMX increment is doing, right? If we were to call HDMX increment like this, right? This is really just what's happening on the other side, right? So of course we can support non-static content. It's not a problem, right? So that part is also really, you know, solved. It's really writing utilities for doing that. That would be interesting, right? We also tried out just serving random static pages like this one, and so on. This is stolen from my other previous thing, another web server I made in Zig back in the day. And that's about it for this. For static files, there's one thing that you do want, actually. We saw this. Let's see here. Yeah, this one. We saw this here, right? In the response from my previous web server, there's this e tag here. And this we do want to actually replicate. So that might be an interesting thing. Let's look at the standards for e-tags. Not standards. This is just MDN. Let's see this one. Entity tags. So if we want to support this, we could effectively take the M time, right? So let's look at this briefly, right? So handle static file, right? It's obviously fetching a file here, blah, 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 right? Now, what if we basically say OS stat on the path that we have, right? So OS stat takes an allocator as well. This returns a file info, right? And a possible error, right? So stat error. This is not error now, right? Yeah, it is, okay. If stat error is not OS error none, we want to, well, I'm sure we can log a warning. This error is very likely to be that this file doesn't exist, which will be caught down here. So we don't need to necessarily do anything super interesting here, right? What we could do is we could take the M time from file info here and actually send this with our stuff here, right? So if we look here, the last modified, I'm not sure. Maybe we could. Oh. No, actually, let's actually send e-tag here. I was gonna say last modified works, but or that we could hash the file and send it, right? But I don't know that we want to do that. It's not really super useful necessarily. E-tag. Is there any capitalization for this? Let's do this. This is the M time, right? Modification time. And here I'll be honest, modification time here might not actually make a lot of sense. We can try this and we'll see what happens, right? Here we want to actually add this as well. Yeah, let's try this and see what happens. So we have this lion JPEG, right? E-tag is now this entire string. That's not really what we want, to be honest. We want to probably turn it into a timestamp. All right. See you some other time, Max. So we probably want the timestamp from this, which probably is going to be time dot something or other. Let's see here. Time, sure. Time, blah, blah, blah. Let's see here. Time to Unix. It's probably the one we want. Like this. Yeah, this should probably work. Let's see. Now, of course, our web server is going to send a different e-tag and so on. And of course, none of this actually means that, you know, yeah, none of this actually means anything for cache control right now. Because you can see here, nothing is cached at the moment, right? Now this e-tag is this, so this is a normal Unix timestamp. Opa, that's very large. This one here, right? 170, etc., right? But if we request this again, and I don't have cache disabled, we're going to see that nothing has changed, right? That's because this is not, you can't actually use this for cache control yet anyway. Let's see if we can. I don't think we're going to be doing this right now, but I just want to kind of look into it maybe. here we have the get request for the lion, right? And to be fair, nothing is being sent here from the client when it comes to this, to be honest, right? Not really. Yeah, it's not actually doing much in terms of sending the right headers anyway. So the fact that we're getting an e tag back doesn't mean anything. Let's see how this actually behaves on our other web server, because of course I do think I implemented this. So here, I should do this now. Let's say I request this again. Oh, cute lion files. That's not what we need. Let's see here. Yeah, 304 not modified. Lion was served. And now when we request this, 304 not modified as well, right? And this is of course because we as a web server have actually implemented this logic. So basically what we would have to do probably is we would have to say that there is a cache, right? Which is a map from, let's say, I64, no, string to, we could do OS file info, but I don't think we would necessarily want this. We could do I64 here because that's actually what we're serving, right? In this map, we would then use, let's try doing this in a very short manner. I might be missing something, but we'll see. Not that big a deal regardless, to be honest. So we have this cache, right? Let's say update cache is a proc that takes file data. Yeah, no, hang on. Let's see, file data like this. It's a struct with a file name. Yeah, this project is online. It's on my GitHub. It should be. I don't think it's private. So we have the file name. We have some file data, and right now we're just doing everything. Right? We have all of it. Right? This should be a slice of bytes, I think. Like this. And we can't actually make that the key, to be fair. Right. We could just have the map here be this though, right? Because here we can have modification time I64. This is just going to be a timestamp like this. And here this will be file data like this. And here we would have the file name, which is a string. I'm going to call that a file name actually, because we're going to make a distinct type. Let's see here. We have our file name, of course. It's a string. We have some file data. It should be a slice of bytes. We'll see. And the modification time, I64. And we really don't want any return value for this. It either works or it doesn't, to be honest. And here we want this, basically. This is obviously reaching into a global. And here we would do get cached file data. And what we can do here is actually we can say fd is file data like this, or data, for example, like this. Then we can say okay is a bool, right? And this should probably actually work already. Okay, not quite. So here we could actually say data or fd okay is equal to this, and then we can return fd and okay like this. Sure. Let's say data okay is equal here, and then we return that. No, a map lookup definitely has a second component, has value. Let's say this fd But this is a little bit curious. Let's see. Opa, wrong URL. So map, whatever. Maps, let's see. LM okay is this. So this definitely should be working just fine. Assignment count mismatch 2 is not 1. No, this is not. File name is a file name, right? So it's distinct for a reason, like this. File data will also actually have a file name like this. Has value should definitely work here. The syntax is definitely valid. Now I'm just curious why this would be. File name of type string. File name. Oh, okay, that was the actual issue. That's kind of odd. Let's see if we can just return this like this. It should be possible, but maybe Odin won't. Yeah, now you can see that this has an optional okay value, right? So that you can take care of if you want, right? So we can indeed just do this, right? And of course, now at this point, we can actually see get cached file data. Maybe it's not necessarily needed like this, right? But anyway, serve static files. Static file. By the way, Chris, if you're here, I don't know, maybe you are, maybe you're not. You were timed out because that was kind of a shitty comment, don't you think? To be honest, it's a little bit of a cunty thing to say, don't you think? Kind of feel like you need to work a little bit on yourself, to be honest. Maybe just sort of become a better person a little bit, I feel like, right? So incoming e tag here, right, will be a value we can pull out from has incoming e tag as well. Request headers, let's say e tag, right? It's like this. If we have e tag like this, right? Sure, we can log it. Don't necessarily mind this, but the important part is we want to say cache with request, not request of path actually. Maybe we do this after we've calculated the path. I think that might be useful. Like this, right? Yeah, this is a file name path, of course, because that's a distinct type. And here, of course, we want to get the file data, right? And has file data, like this. And now this should be basically the information we have in there, right? If has file data, right? We actually want to effectively preempt the entire fetching of a file, right? And now you might kind of want to say, you know, we either pull from cache or we, you know, pull from file. We might have one function that does that thing instead, right? But we're gonna do this now just inline, because why not, right? Let's see here. If we have, say, have file data, it's a little bit nicer. If we have file data, we want to just send the actual information there, right? Instead. No, actually, we want to send. Yeah, we want to compare the e tag to the one we have, of course, right? Yeah. Actually, we don't need to store this file data at all. I don't know what I was thinking there. Let's just remove that, right? File data doesn't need to exist here at all. We can just say this, basically. And now at this point, modification time is what we want here, right? Or e tag, to be honest, right? We can just say e tag here is a distinct I64, basically. And so the updated cache here now really becomes just e tag of time to Unix modification. No, we don't need all of that. We just need modification time, to be honest, right? Like this. And at this point, update cache really is insignificant, to be honest, as well, right? We don't actually need that one either. We can remove these two functions. And then we can go down to our other stuff down here. And we can basically say, we have an increment e tag here. We're going to check our cache for this. If we have file data and sure, fntt printf, right? If the stringification of that e tag, right? Not file data. Oh yeah, hang on. This is no longer that, right? It's actually the e tag. If the stringification of our e tag existing, no, e tag like this, is equal to incoming e tag, right? Opa. E tag like this. Oh, I have some extra curlies here. Never mind. Then, thank you, Jishun. Into your 3rd hour of prod deployment. So that's one deployment that's been going on for 3 hours. Is what you're saying. Good, very much good luck with that. Have fun. That's all I have to say. Yeah, that does not sound fun at all. Sorry to hear this. Now we're sending this 304, right? If the e tag is equal. And we could try here to see, you know, okay, does this actually work? We also have to add, of course, this information when we've sent the previous request, right? So we would have to say cache for a file name for that path is equal to, and here we do want time to Unix, right? Because it turns this modification time into a Unix number, basically an epoch number. Let's see here, cannot assign value time to Unix of type i64 to e tag in assignment. That is because we have not wrapped it like this. There you go. And this, we do this only when we've actually completed the request, right? So let's see if this actually kind of works. Kubernetes upgrade gone wrong. Yeah, this sounds suspiciously like modern development. Good luck. I wish you all the best. I really do, actually. That sounded super sarcastic. but it's not at all. Yeah, I hope things work out better than broken Kubernetes. And good luck on the image service, by the way. Tell me how that goes next time you are here. Or how it went, maybe. This is not doing the correct thing. E-tag is this. Let's see here. Right, okay. Let's, so what I found here was basically if we look at this, we can see if none match is really the way we want to do this apparently. We're going to look for e-tag in both of those. So let's see here if we can do this, right? So here we can see we can do this one, but then we could also say incoming e-tag has incoming e-tag. Let's actually say this, right? Let's do this one. I'm going to see if this or else request.headers if none match or else empty. Yeah, maybe. I don't know that this is going to work necessarily. Let's say fall. Nah, we can't really do that. If incoming e-tag is not exactly, if it's not empty string, let's do this, right? Or else expect an optional k-like value or an n-valued expression where the last value is either a boolean or can be compared against nil got string. And here we might actually be able to do this with some parentheses. I'm not entirely sure. It kind of depends here a little bit, right? Because normally speaking, you're supposed to effectively just be able to, you know, do this, right? But we want two or else, right? I'm gonna go ahead and just err on the side of just do the fucking thing. And we're gonna reduce this now to what we had before. And we're gonna say incoming, let's see, if none match, we're gonna pull that one out. So if either of these is true, right, we will be using this. So incoming e-tag is going to be equal to, let's see, has incoming e-tag. If that's true, we're gonna use that value. Otherwise, we're gonna use incoming if not match. And this value should be a string that is empty if we don't have anything, right? We can obviously we can try to verify this, right? Let's do this actually. And now we might actually see that this should kind of do something else, right? Now we can look here. I'm going to execute this again because I'm not entirely sure. Yeah, now we're getting 304s actually. E-tag matches sending 304. And in my browser, we can see here 304, 304, etc., etc. Right. So now we're storing basically the e-tags, and we're basically saying if the e-tag actually matches what we already have in cache, right? And again, we don't have to store file data. I don't know why I thought this, right? We don't need to at all. if we get this if none match header, right, or e tag, we are going to effectively just be saying, you know, this hasn't changed, so you can use whatever you had in cache, right? So whenever we actually do this now, we're mostly reading from our own cache, right? So, which is better, and obviously fairly trivial to support in the end, to be honest. And again, you probably make some kind of interface function for saying, here's a cache with some values, some modification times and so on. And here is, you know, the file name we want to get. And then we would have one function that does all of this kind of in one go. It either fetches from disk and so on, and returns an e tag value perhaps to return to the client and so on. And of course you can write this. I'm not going to do that now, but yeah, we probably will at some point. Because of course you can see here that everything here is very manual, right? It is doing effectively just doing the thing, right? It is literally just writing these things out, right? When in reality, probably we would want to serialize a response to bytes and then send that, for example, right? Which would do all of this, right? But we don't have these functions yet. We haven't focused on that. We're focusing on what is it that we actually have to do in order to get this, right? So that's the idea more than anything else. All right, and with that, I think we're gonna be done for today. It is 21:18 here. Seems a good time to end, probably. And yeah, that's it for today. And next time, hopefully, depending on how well it goes with the HTTP client that I might be adding stuff to, we have to add TLS and so on, and I will be doing that offline because it's just using libraries at that point in time. I'm not going to write the TLS implementation for doing this stuff. I'm going to be adding, so we can use HTTPS at that point, and we're going to try to talk to the YouTube API about chat messages in live streams. Once we've built that thing for polling for new messages and so on, we're then going to create a event firehose that we can connect WebSocket clients to so they can receive these events, right? Once we've done that, we basically have the capability to write bots and so on, or, you know, things for the live stream while it's running and so on. Because then you will connect the WebSocket to this, to the web server. The web server itself fetches events constantly, and when it finds new events, it says to all of the WebSocket connections, here's a new event that you haven't seen, for example, right? And they have this constant connection to that web server and so on. And then we have effectively a data fire host that we can actually use, and we can use this concept for all kinds of stuff, right? We could build this for almost anything, right? But I'm interested in the live stream stuff mostly because that's of course what we are here in, right? So that's probably going to be the plan for stuff. But all right, and yeah, see you next time, LSA, hopefully. Ciao, and have a good day.